people like you are so willing to throw like our entire system, the entire Constitution, every part of what makes this country work under the bus for political points. How could you support a guy, Kash Patel? You're talking about how important it is to believe in the Constitution of freedom of speech. This guy literally has a book calling Donald Trump the king, and this guy has a list of political enemies that he wants to go under. Kash Patel, who's going to be our FBI director, and he's got people that he says he wants to go after legally. Before I thought you guys were so mad about Alvin Bragg and so mad about Letitia James or whatever that these people are calling investigations before they even get into office, but you're excited for Kash Patel to come in? That's insane to me.
I need to ask you a question on this.
Yeah.
What is omni-liberal?
Just to be clear, you're non-responsive to every single thing I just said, and now we can make random vague appeals to the Bill of Rights or whatever other bullshit we always do. We have nothing to say.
I'm not being not responsive at all. I want to be very responsive. I am taking the populist position, and you were taking the establishment position.
Taking an authoritarian position. I'm taking a constitutional position. Yes, just to be clear, you're an authoritarian. Morning, guys. Welcome to the New York studio, where we are chatting today with another DNC chair candidate and my good friend and fellow debater, Joe, aka GoodLawgic. What's up?
I'm fine, Joe Nierman. Great to see you. We've talked in the past, but this is our first face-to-face.
Indeed, so. Yeah.
In the flesh.
Over Trump stuff or some kind of legal stuff.
I think it was one of those Trump trials that we debated. I think it was the Florida case that we debated about.
Gotcha. So, wait, you want to introduce yourself, I guess? What do you do on YouTube? How do people?
All right, my name is Joe Nierman. My channel is GoodLawgic. Most places that I'm at, you can find me under GoodLawgic, whether YouTube or Rumble. On Twitter, I'm at The Following Pro. And I'm a New York litigator. I've been practicing for 25 years. I try to limit my practice as much as possible as I become a podcaster where I talk about law and politics, and I try to present it in a framework where I'll do an analysis that's going to go beneath the surface. But at the same time, I recognize that part of what we are doing is entertainment, so I'm going to make sure to keep away from being as dry as possible. So that's basically what I've been doing. And I stream now 5 to 6 nights a week. So,
all right. One of the things you were mentioning before we went live was you have a free speech Supreme Court case that you're trying to do. You said you think I would agree with it. I feel like we looked through this a long time ago on my stream, but I don't remember exactly. What are you trying to bring a case about?
Well, right now the sustainability of the case is actually a little bit in jeopardy, which is unfortunate. Everyone knows how you remember how Judge Merchan he gagged Trump the same way Chutkan had and basically imposed a gag, saying that he can't talk about anyone aside from the district attorney and the judge himself, can't talk about their families, can't talk about witnesses, can't talk about anything like that. And I looked up the Supreme Court precedent, and what I found was that if the gag is unconstitutional, there's actually a cause of action that a reporter, like the media has. New York Times, back, I don't know if you're old enough to remember that. Remember the Joel Steinberg case? You ever read about the Joel Steinberg case? It was a terrible case that happened back, I think, in the 80s. So you were...
Definitely wouldn't have remembered it because I was born in 88, so...
Right. Okay, so shortly before you were born, I think, was this Joel Steinberg case, which was a terrible brutality case that happened, I think, here in Brooklyn. And the judge had put a gag on the case. The New York Times said that this is an unconstitutional gag. He was gagging the lawyers, I think, in that particular circumstance. And the New York Times says this is unconstitutional. You have to let us be able to interview us because now it's affecting your restriction on his freedom of speech is affecting our freedom of press. So that case was New York Times versus Rothwax. And the court recognized that the Times and the media have a valid basis when someone is being wrongfully suppressed from speaking, that it affects their rights of freedom of press. So based on that theory, I went to the First Department and I said that the gag order that was placed on Trump was unconstitutional. And accordingly, that was inhibiting my ability as a member of the media. I happened to be a member of the New York media. So that was affecting my rights of freedom of press. And the issue I had, a lot of people when they hear this, especially people from the left, they assume that, oh, he's some crazy Trumpist. He just wants to help Trump. This had nothing to do with Trump. This is so little and so tangentially related to Trump. It was much more that I feel what happened was that there was politicization that was motivated because of the name Trump to say we're going to start changing Supreme Court precedent and looking at it in a completely new way. And now, because he's so vile, so evil, so dangerous, whatever it is, that we need to shut him up and we're going to throw out the Constitution in order to shut him up, and we're going to ignore Supreme Court precedent. Because if you
can I ask real quick on that other case that you mentioned? You said over the Steinberg case, it was New York Times v.
Rothwex.
Did that was that adjudicated in the federal Supreme Court, or did
that was in state?
That was okay. So the highest court in New York is the New York State Court of Appeals.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. Gotcha.
So under New York law, that I have a right as a member of the media to go bring this action on his behalf. And what I felt was I was frustrated with Trump's own claims. You have to realize that for Trump, his perspective was this is all a political show. They're just coming after me for politics. They want to try to paint me as a criminal. They want me to say all these different convictions. And you see that the left ultimately, when he ended up being found guilty, they kept saying convict, convict, convict. And he was correctly identifying that. So he leaned in from the perspective of this is political persecution, and they're silencing me because they're trying to cut me out of the politics, and it's an unfair suppression. It's a violation of my freedom of speech because I'm a political candidate. And my point was, I don't give a damn if he's a political candidate. He's an American, and we don't have a right to do that to an American, to silence an American, because if you look at Supreme Court precedent, there's what's considered a heavy presumption of unconstitutionality of any gag order. And if we start chipping away at that, in that case, they're going to, anytime someone is accused of a crime, they're going to say, he's a threat. We have to silence him. If they brought up some ridiculous tax charge on you, whatever charge on you or on me, my channel is considerably smaller than yours, or someone even smaller than me, they can say that because he's speaking, he's riling people up against the district attorney's office, and accordingly, he's a threat, and we have to strip away his silence, his freedom of speech, simply because of the fact that he was accused of a crime, and we're afraid that if he takes to social media, he's going to go out there, he's going to start saying certain things, that we're going to get all these harassing phone calls, and we're going to get, we're going to tell people calling in here. That's not the balancing test that the Supreme Court set up for when you're allowed to inhibit someone's free speech. And I don't want to get too heady with the lawyer talk, but the reliance that they said in Supreme Court cases where they allowed to have a gag in the past, you go back to the 70s and the 80s, there's Shepard v. Maxwell, there's Nebraska Press Association versus Stewart, and they set up a balancing test, and they said sometimes the media is so badly hurting someone else's right to a fair trial and basically trampling all over their ability to have constitutional right of a fair trial. Sometimes in those circumstances, you need to dial back freedom of speech. And then you have to make sure that it's as limited as possible. And invariably they would say, this is not a good enough case. This is not a good enough case. And you have to verify that for certain it's this exhibition of First Amendment rights that's stealing and trampling the constitutional rights. And then you have to say that the remedy is as limited as possible. There's no other possible remedy which would help protect this person's constitutional right to a fair trial. That's the balancing test they talked about. Are you understanding me? Because I know I get very lawyerly, and I don't mean to be. You're a very smart guy. I know that, but I want to make sure I'm being clear here so far. So they talk about balancing test, and every time they talk about this balancing test of constitutional rights, where it's your First Amendment rights are trampling this guy's Sixth Amendment rights or 14th Amendment rights, his right to a fair trial. So you have this competing balance there, and they said, well, okay, if you're really crushing him, you want to hear a crazy case?
Yeah. For a quick tangent, go for it. I got a lot of questions about this one, but if you want to do another one.
Yeah, it's on this. It's on this.
Yeah.
The Shepard v. Maxwell case, okay, is back in the 60s before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
This guy was accused of murder, okay? And I think murdering his own family. Everyone in the media thought he did it. All the papers going out there saying they do it. Picture in the 60s, a courthouse, everyone smoking in the lobbies, wearing their hats, and the media with their press badge and the flash cameras. And they come to this trial, and the media is everywhere. I mean, everywhere, in the jury well. During deliberations, they're hanging out with the jurors, and they're like, you're going to find him guilty, obviously. I mean, this guy totally did it. So he ends up being convicted, and he says, I never had a fair trial here because the media was, just destroying me. And what the Supreme Court said in Shepard v. Maxwell is sometimes when the media and their expression of their First Amendment right of free press is being manifested so egregiously, so aggressively that it's destroying this guy's chance of having a fair trial, the court has to intercede and stop them from doing that. Otherwise, there's no fair trial. So that's when we'll say we're going to open the door. In general, if you're going to gag someone, we consider that a violation. We consider that something that has a heavy presumption of being unconstitutional. But look, you have to have a balancing test here between these constitutional rights. So, and then there was another case, Nebraska Press Association versus Stewart. There was a handful of cases the Supreme Court handled, which every time they talked about this balance between these this balancing test. What the court did in D.C. with the Chucking case, and the same thing they did here with Merchan, is they looked at a completely different balancing test. They say the state has a right to a fair trial. Or sometimes they phrase it as the court has a right, which those are two different entities that they seem to glom together a little bit. And because the court is not getting a fair trial, that is now we get to see about suppressing his free speech. The Supreme Court has never allowed that. They've never endorsed that. They've never taken that position. That's in complete conflict with what the Sixth Circuit says. The Ninth Circuit doesn't agree that the court has a right to a fair trial. They don't agree with that at all. And they say, look, the defendant, what are we worrying about? We're worrying about defendant. It's free speech versus defendant's rights. Here, all the rights were on the same side. You have Trump's right to free speech and his right to a fair trial. They're both on one side of it. And then you have this court interest in fair administration of justice and having fair trials. The Supreme Court never endorsed actually creating a balancing test there. And I don't think we ever should, because I think that our freedom of speech is the most precious thing that we have. And I don't want to see that eroded. I don't want to see that you get arrested and that anyone gets arrested. I don't care if they're left, the right, Donald Trump, it can be, Mussolini. I don't care who it is. I don't want them being suppressed out of some fear that now the state is not going to have a fair trial. The Sixth Circuit, the way they worded it was this. They said, your right to a fair trial is a constitutional right that serves only the people, and the government must be the people's servant, not their master. And if they can't handle a tilt in the balance because a particular defendant has too much power, they basically can eat it. It's hard luck on them. The burden is on the state, and I don't want to see this change. We see in Texas there's a whistleblower who they're looking to gag. That's in the middle of going through a whole process of being gagged. This guy has 20,000 followers, and he only has 20,000 followers because he became a whistleblower. He's relatively in social media landscape. He's a nobody, and the state has said, "Oh, he's too much of a threat. Sure. We have to silence him." Do you think that that's a healthy perspective for our court to take? That hey, if someone's going to tweet out things that the government doesn't like, that means that we need to silence them.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely,
yeah.
Why would you say that?
So I think the first thing we have to consider is there are definitely times where even our fundamental rights could be taken from us. We can say, whether we're talking about the state coming after them, right? When you try to figure out what form of review you should engage in, right? Rational basis, intermediate scrutiny, strict scrutiny. There are times where even under strict scrutiny, a fundamental right could be implicated that the state will survive a Supreme Court analysis from, where they can deprive us of a given right. There are times when even political speech can be implicated. The Supreme Court has developed balancing tests for that, like in Brandenburg v. Ohio, to figure out if you're directly inciting somebody to violence, where speech can be violent.
Right.
And then we have criminal statutes related to conspiracy to commit crimes, which those conspiracies could involve no crime in and of itself, but rather the fact that you've made a plan to do a crime and then you've taken one step towards it, even if those two things on their own aren't illegal, both of them together with the speech element included can be a crime, right? Mm-hmm. And I think these are pretty easy things where we all agree that like these are things that are probably good to limit our speech in some way on these things, right? But I do agree that it should be like very narrowly and specifically tailored, right? If somebody says, I hate my teacher, I just want to blow this place up, that's not enough, right? You need two people, you need a step taken towards an we need more, that's important. I agree. I think that one thing that I guess conceptually I would want to kind of push on a little bit is you say the state and then you say the defendant. I would argue to some extent that the state is also kind of a little bit the embodiment of the people as well, right? That when you're talking about especially criminal law, the public has an interest in seeing crime prosecuted, right? That's why they're criminal laws. That's why we have police officers. We've all decided there are certain things in society we shouldn't do in a criminal aspect, right?
I'm letting you finish your point before
okay.
I respond to
that. So I think that I do agree that also as a society, we've decided that there is a burden on the state to prove crimes to a very, very, very high standard, that they have a very stringent set of rules that they're required to follow in how they gather that evidence and how they present it to the court. In every step is very important here. But I think that narrowly tailored gag orders around defendants that might be using extrajudicial processes to try to influence the outcome of that case. So, for instance, I think when it came to Trump, it was attacking the family member of the judge.
Judge McCann's daughter, Laura McCann.
Yeah. Or implicating like members of the jury. I don't know if Trump was doing that, but implications of like members of the jury or whatever. These are things where I don't see these serving a really good, if any, free speech purpose at all. But I do see how they could heavily intervene in that process of the adjudication of the trial itself. And much the same that somebody might say, well, gagging this person is hurting our freedom of speech because now it's been politicized. I think on the opposite end, you could say, well, this person is so popular and they have so much power with their speech that now they can politically survive any case because they can just make the appropriate threats or the appropriate statements to have a favorable outcome every time. And I think that is equally as concerning, I think, to an ordinary citizen.
I think that's a dangerously foolish perspective to look at the state as another entity, just like a person.
To look what?
You're looking at the state. You premised all of this as looking at the state as a litigant or a party here, and you didn't look at the unique position of the state. And you said because of their elected officials and their representative body of the people, in that case we can view them as if they are the people. Which by that logic, you don't need to have a Bill of Rights. By that logic, you don't have to worry about anything as far as the state running amok, as far as the state being in danger, which is something that historically, when you look back to our founding fathers and to the thousands of years of historical precedent before that, you can say the state is notorious for trampling people. And you're saying, well, the state is now the representative body of the people, therefore they're not a threat. They have a unique position because they are the only ones who are authorized and licensed to carry guns, to press charges, throw people in jail. They have a unique position that is not remotely akin to you or me or any other assembly of people that are put together.
Sure, but we've given them that power because we feel like there are some things in society that are so bad, that are so egregious that we want a third party.
100%.
Yeah,
I 100% agree with that. Mm-hmm. But that's why we have certain checks as to what powers and abilities they have, and say we are going to look at them as a completely different entity. So when you're trying to frame them as if, well, they're just the will of the people being asserted, that's not a fair way of looking at them.
I'm not just trying to frame them that way, but that is what they are to some extent. Yeah.
I mean, the
laws are things that our representatives pass.
Yes.
And then the police are enforcing these laws, hopefully in ways. DA is often elected or appointed position by the mayor. Your attorney general for the state is an elected position, I think, generally, or might be appointed sometimes by the governor. But these are people that they're
representative of the people.
Yeah.
I'm not disputing the fact that they're representative of the people.
So the people have vested their power in the courts and the executive.
That doesn't mean that they don't. Once they take that position, that they don't move into a completely different sphere than you or me. I mean, I think you recognize that.
Yeah, of course. They're entrusted with an awesome ability, and they should have restrictions on those.
And they have to have certain checks on them. Mm-hmm. And part of those checks is that, and part of the things as far as making it tougher for them, that the Supreme Court has always recognized is that you can't to look at them as if they're the same as the people. I mean, I understand that they pass a law because they're elected officials, but to say that they're the same as the people,
I've never said they're the same as the people.
Okay, so I'm not sure why you would bring that element into the entire equation.
Because I think that your framing is just viewing the state as a wholly antagonistic party that just comes down to harass ordinary citizens with their petty laws.
I think that's the concern. That's why we have a constitution.
That might be the concern. My concern right now as a citizen, and I think my concern is far more valid because now there's a convicted felon who's going to be the president. My concern is that I want criminal law enforced in the United States. I think all of us share that concern on criminal law. Why the state can literally take your rights away from you, and we all agree that that's a good thing and an okay thing.
Yeah, I definitely, obviously, I agree. I agree with I agree with having a justice system, but the idea is that the justice system has to be something that they're held to the toughest standard possible because we are giving them the unique capacity to imprison people.
I don't think they're held.
Is that a necessary evil? Is that a necessary? I wouldn't even call it evil. Is that a necessary element toward maintaining justice in our society? 100%. Obviously, I'm simply saying that I think that you're getting so bogged down because you fall in line with the perspective that he is some sort of unique evil.
I'm not even talking about Donald Trump right now, and I'm not falling in line with anything. I don't think that the goal is to make it the toughest possible. I think the goal is to make it the fairest possible.
And why do we have beyond a reasonable doubt? Why is it such a high standard, you think?
To make it as fair as possible, to make sure that people aren't being, because when we talk about a conviction in criminal court, we're depriving people of rights that are guaranteed to you under the Constitution. Negative freedoms, these are very, very big things, right? Mm-hmm. So beyond a reasonable doubt is a standard that is so high, is a burden that's so high. But I mean, it could be
including your freedom of speech.
Sure, but it could be.
But we're taking away your freedom of speech before you even convicted. You're just charged, and we're going to take away your freedom of speech.
It could be beyond a reasonable doubt. It could be 0.01%. It could be 0.001%. We could
beyond
say
any
that
doubt. You could say beyond any doubt.
we could say that the judge has to walk to court with ankle weights on, or that you can make it more burdensome if you want it, but the goal isn't just make it burdensome for the sake of being burdensome. There's an idea of fairness.
It's to be reasonably burdensome.
Sure, yeah.
But over here, so now you're saying as soon as a person is charged, that it's a good idea for us to silence him. And I want to just I want to get into your brain as to why that would be a good thing.
Well, do you think it would be, let's say hypothetically, you have a person who gets charged with a crime. They do their first day in court. Afterwards, they come outside and they talk to the press, and they say, I saw the jurors here, and I would just say, if I was on the jury here and I voted to convict me, I would expect, some of my followers to show up and, teach these people a lesson or whatever. Do you think that would be like an okay statement to make?
I mean, I would need a lot more context over here. But I'm over there, and to the extent you're saying he's making a threat. Okay, so there, if someone's making a direct threat, so you're right. There are laws that prohibit.
No,
that.
Vague enough that it wouldn't survive a Brandenburg test. It's not like an incitement to riot or.
And I agree with you. That probably would not survive a Brandenburg test.
Yeah. So then,
but you're saying the idea is that he's trying to level some sort of veiled threat at the jury that if you convict me, folks are going to come after you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't like that kind of speech at all.
I'm not asking if you like it or not. I'm saying, do you think that this contributes to a good environment for justice?
Do I think that contributes to a good environment for justice? I think that finding ways to prescribe that is so difficult in a way that actually is fair and humane to society itself. I don't
think gagging somebody so that they can't talk about members of the court or members of the jury.
You said he shouldn't be able to talk about members of the judge's family, even if the judge's family is potentially politically motivated to come after him.
But the judge's members of the family are not the judge.
No, okay, fine. But
if you feel like he should recuse himself, there's a process in court to ask for a recusal. That's
which he basically decides: do I want to recuse myself or not? And there's a lot of attorneys, even on the left, couldn't believe that he didn't recuse himself.
I don't agree that a lot of people on the left can't believe that he couldn't recuse himself.
Because if you're within 6 degrees, they're considered within 6 degrees. If you're considered within 6 degrees of potential taint, a judge is supposed to remove himself. He was within 1 degree.
I don't know where that came from, but I would bet my whole life that is not real. I'm within 6 degrees of Hitler. You're probably within 6 degrees of Hitler. There's no shot that there was any rule.
It's not 6 degrees. It's not 6 degrees the way you play 6 degrees with Kevin Bacon. There's different classifications as to like someone being a cousin versus someone being a sibling versus that's when they talk about degrees. It doesn't mean like he was in this movie with that guy, was in a movie with that guy, was in a movie with that guy. It means that there's quantifications as far as how many degrees of closeness someone has to someone else, and that was the 6 degrees that I was referencing there. But then his daughter is the closest possible degree, and she's literally what with the head of the campaign of the PR machine for the DNC. You want to tell me that for him to come out there and speculate and say, hey, perhaps Judge Merchan is not the best person to be handling this case when his daughter is the one who's the chair of the DNC? Do you think that helped justice? Do you think that actually helped the left? You don't think that hurt the left, that people saw that this judge is gagging Trump, that this judge has a daughter who's making millions of dollars, and her company is making countless millions of dollars every year for the DNC, and that's the person whose father is presiding over a criminal justice case for him and ultimately convicting him? You think that helped the left rather than hurting them?
So first of all, it doesn't matter who it would have been. The response would have been exactly the same from the right. The second point would be if you go through the process and you're not happy with the process of what came out in court and you do your appeal or whatever, then is it left up to the defendant to decide whether or not they need to publicly excoriate their judge because they feel like their judge was too tainted? What if Smith would have said, Jack Smith, what if he would have said, I don't think that the Judge Eileen Cannon should be allowed to preside over Trump's case because he appointed her?
Okay, he could say that.
And then if she doesn't recuse, does he go to the media and start attacking her and attacking her family?
He can say that, but that's never been considered a basis for recusal. When you have financial interest or someone within 1 degree of you has financial interest, in that case, that is a basis for recusal. That's different from saying this person was appointed.
So there's another case where a person had a daughter who was in a political camp that was different than the defendant, and that judge has recused themselves. There's a direct legal precedent or a direct precedent for a judge recusing themselves in a case.
Whether he legally had to recuse himself, I'm telling you right now, he did not legally have to recuse himself. I'm simply saying, I'm very happy that this thing went the way it did. Because I'm going to tell you right now, you elected Trump.
Well, I didn't, but...
No, you. You, Destiny, you and all the other leftist political opponents, you and MSNBC and all of you who pushed and pushed to persecute Trump, there is no way he would be sitting in the White House come January 20th, if not for the likes of you and me. I feel like it's a joint effort we've been working towards getting him elected.
Donald Trump could have raped a child on camera and people like you would still vote for him.
Yes,
so there's absolutely, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what the process actually looked like. At the end of the day, you're going to support him no matter what.
No,
it doesn't matter.
Not true.
It absolutely is true.
2 years, I can tell you something, 2 years ago, I wasn't even sure I was going to vote for him.
I don't care about any of the. Did you vote for him in 2020?
I did.
And in 2016?
Yes.
You were always voting for him then. You're lying right now.
No. What I'm saying is this. I wouldn't have supported him in the primary. And because I'll tell you something.
But it doesn't matter if you.
No, but he ended up
for Donald Trump.
But he ended up. Why did he dominate the primaries without even attending a single debate?
Because conservatives are the ultimate cry bullies, the ultimate victims at all points in time, while also having all of the power at all points in time. It's just how conservatives function. Okay. That's why a conservative will cry about the fact that the case in New York wasn't fair, even though he was convicted by a jury, and they'll say that the case going on in Florida, the federal case, is absolutely fair, even though Eileen Cannon kicked that case down the road for absolutely no reason, and Judge Thomas was giving constitutionally. No.
No, constitutionally, he was not. Jack Smith was not appointed and had no basis in law to actually be prosecuting that case.
I disagree with that, and I have a feeling the Supreme Court's not going to touch that one either. But
the Supreme Court's probably not going to touch my case either. The Supreme Court is not a right entity. They're not a left entity. They're a three-pronged entity.
Okay, and it's not Judge Eileen Cannon's role as a judge to determine whether or not she feels like Jack Smith was constitutionally appointed or not.
Of course, because if he can't bring the case, in that case, it's like you bringing the case.
What do you mean?
If he's not the appropriate person, he's not the representative of the body.
It's not on her to determine if he's the appropriate person or not. That's not her job.
Of course it is.
That wasn't the case before her. That's not what she was asked to decide on.
She has to decide whether or not this case can continue because the person who's coming here, if I walk in there and I say, this is the United States versus Destiny, do you think that a judge should listen to me? They say, you're nobody, get out of here.
The federal government says she is somebody. She's an appointed special counsel by the Department of Justice.
Doesn't have determination under law as to whether or not he's somebody. In order for it to happen, there's actually legal process that has to go forward, including this recommendation from the president. There has to be confirmation from the Senate. For one reason or another, they chose some guy who never went through that process in any stage in his life.
For one reason or another, because the Department of Justice historically has been able to appoint a special counsel. The Attorney General has had the ability to do that.
So on the one hand, the Attorney General here, Merrick Garland, who's one of the most corrupt individuals we've ever seen in such a high role.
Okay, but for the exact opposite reason, because he should have gone after Trump at day one. But go ahead.
Going after him for what? For what on day one?
For the January 6th case, should have been rolling way sooner. And the documents case of Mar-a-Lago, although to be fair, I don't know what.
Incitement? Do you think he committed incitement?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Under Brandenburg? I mean, you've read Brandenburg.
Under
Brandenburg.
I think it would have worked in the broader context of that J6 case. For just an incitement charge, maybe not, although I'm not sure.
No, because I think that I think there's a reason that every attorney from the left has never even thought of bringing an incitement case against him because he was clearly within the rights of what he's allowed to say under Brandenburg.
Possible. I don't think it's clear anything, and I think that the reason not to bring that case is because the Supreme Court's not going to touch it anyway because they're cowards and they'll only touch cases that could be incredibly favorable to Trump, and they won't touch anything under major questions or political questions or whatever other bullshit they want to make up that would hurt Trump. So
they ignored Texas versus Pennsylvania back in 2020.
Well, I don't think they ignored it. They refused to hear it, right? So
that's ignoring it.
To stand.
That's ignoring it. They said,
yeah. Well, they allowed it. They allowed Pennsylvania's decision to stand, right? They denied hearing the case, so it's dead, right?
All right. So I think there's so much you and I we're living in completely different planets here.
Sure.
And I want to try and just sort of come to I don't know. This is the whole Venus Mars thing, and I want to sort of try to get both of us into Earth here. All right.
Okay.
So let's slow down when we talk about the Supreme Court. You think that it's a 6-3 Supreme Court?
Do I think it's a 6-3 Supreme Court?
Yeah.
I like Amy.
Oh, okay. All right.
I think that if do you think that the Republicans robbed the Democrats of a Supreme Court pick?
Yeah, I think that was good. I think that was good political machination.
Okay, we're probably never going to agree on anything then, but go ahead.
No, I'm saying
I guarantee you that if it was the opposite, that
I'd be furious,
screaming about. You wouldn't just be furious; you'd be saying it was unconstitutional, that it broke the decorum and the rules of government, that it destroyed the.
Is it unconstitutional that the Senate never held a hearing?
No, but you would be talking about
impeachment.
You would be.
They never. Why didn't we ever get that? He's impeached by the House. Why didn't we ever get the Mayorkas impeachment hearing from the Senate? Because the Senate does whatever the hell the Senate.
Wait, why didn't we get the impeachment for what?
Wasn't Mayorkas, from what I recall, 7 months ago, he was impeached by the House, and still we're waiting for the Senate trial?
I don't even know what that's about.
Yeah, because the Senate does whatever the hell the Senate wants to do. that's what the Senate does. So Mitch McConnell did whatever the hell he wanted to do, and we see that Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer, they do whatever the hell they want to do. That's the way the Senate has always run.
That's not how it runs. They have plenty of rules. They've got constitutional orders. They've got responsibilities. They have ordinary rules.
And they're a body which basically decides how they're a self-governing body for the most part. For there's very little they're obligated to do, even with respect to the impeachment itself, right? You remember both impeachment proceedings that they have with Trump, right? For impeachment 1 with Ukraine, with the whole phone call with Zelensky, impeachment 2 with the incitement, the evidence they brought in there. I mean, it was a joke. It was a joke. I was sitting there like, this is a joke. But then I realized this is the Senate. The Senate is allowed to bring in whatever evidence they want.
You know that every single court that adjudicated on the insurrection thing agreed that it was an insurrection, right? They agreed in the Senate that it was an insurrection. They agreed in the Colorado Supreme Court that it was an insurrection. Then when the Supreme Court turned down...
And the Senate, they agreed it was an insurrection.
Yes. So over 50 members voted that it would have been, and the people that voted not to impeach Trump only did it on procedural grounds because they said that once he was out of office, he could no longer be impeached, but they agreed it was an insurrection.
That's like saying Hillary won the election in 2016 because there's a majority there which voted for Hillary. It's just not reality. Because
no, if I were to say it is true that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote in 2016, then that would be true. But she didn't win the election because
So when a Senate recognizes that you need to get 2/3 of their body to convict, and some people go along with it and others don't, and they recognize that we're not giving you the 2/3, is that ultimately saying that this was a conviction of insurrection?
No, I didn't say it was a conviction of insurrection. I just said that the majority of the Senate agreed that it was. I'm just saying that in every court where they've adjudicated on that question, they've all agreed that,
So the Senate is not a court. So the Senate, first and foremost, is not a court.
I agree.
And secondly, they came to a determination ultimately based on their own yardsticks that he did not commit an insurrection.
That's not true.
If a defendant...
Wait, do you recognize what you just said is not true? The only reason why Donald Trump was not convicted in the Senate is because they felt like once he was out of office, it was outside of the scope of their abilities to impeach him. Do you recognize that or didn't recognize that?
That's what they claim. That's what Mitch McConnell says. You believe what Mitch McConnell says? All of a sudden, is there anything else Mitch McConnell ever said in his life that you believed? That this is a thing he said that you believed?
I don't think Mitch McConnell generally lies. What do you mean?
I think, okay, Mitch, I think that he will say whatever is most politically expedient in the moment. At least that's before he lost his marbles, which frankly probably happened.
Probably happened on January 6th when he was on the floor urging Trump to call off his lunatics that were outside trying to break into...
whatever feds were, the 27 feds who were there.
You mean the people who were federal informants at one point in time, right?
Okay. All right.
You know that report totally destroyed your entire conspiracy on your side about there being federal agents on the ground, right? Do you acknowledge that there were 0 federal agents on the ground?
I don't know. That's what the feds are saying right now. But
wait. So you acknowledge that report? You acknowledge there's 0 evidence that there were any federal agents on the ground whatsoever?
My president.
Wait. Do you acknowledge there was 0? There's 0 evidence.
Biden told me that I can't trust his DOJ. I can't.
But that's good because you don't trust President Biden. So you acknowledge that there's been no report, no evidence. There's 0 federal agents on the ground, right?
Are we trying to get somewhere? Or are you just trying to?
You just brought up out of nowhere.
Are we trying to score points?
You just tried to score points by saying 27 agents on the ground or whatever. They weren't. They were federal informants, which could be anybody, right?
I didn't say 27. I don't think I said 27. I don't think I used terms 27 agents, but if I did, I misspoke. You're right. There are 27 informants.
Okay.
But that's a difference without a very discernible distinction.
You don't think there's a difference between a confidential informant and an agent?
As far as the impact that they're having?
Yes.
On what basis? Are you
if I were to get caught with weed right now, if I walk outside and I got caught with weed and the FBI officer catches me and he's like, listen, I need you to tell me blah, blah, blah. And I inform and I tell her whatever. And then a year later, I'm at a protest. Do you think that I'm the same person at that protest as an undercover FBI agent? Because I would be considered an informant at that point, right?
Right. So you want to basically say, since they had formerly worked, you're assuming that they have no ties to them whatsoever.
I didn't say you're assuming they don't have ties. My understanding is that report said,
and we don't know, and we're not going to know because this is the least transparent, most obfuscating DOJ and FBI imaginable.
That's not even remotely
true. You should be excited
true.
for Kash Patel to be coming in. You should be excited that Kash Patel is going to come here and he's going to expose everything. It's going to big, beautiful spotlight that's going to come down, a ray of sunshine that's going to enlighten all of us.
This is unbelievable.
You should be so excited.
It's unbelievable to me.
Join
Why did you
me in
pay so much lip service to the thing that is the grossest to me that I hate that I've read anything about anything now at this point is how much people like you are so willing to throw like our entire system, the entire Constitution, every part of what makes this country work under the bus for political points. How could you support a guy, Kash Patel? You're talking about how important it is to believe in the Constitution of freedom of speech. This guy literally has a book calling Donald Trump the king, and this guy has a list of political potential enemies that he wants to go under. Kash Patel, who's going to be our FBI director. And he's got people that he says he wants to go after legally before. I thought you guys were so mad about Alvin Bragg and so mad about Letitia James or whatever, that these people are calling investigations before they even get into office, but you're excited for Kash Patel to come in? That's insane to me.
I need to ask you a question on this.
Yeah.
What does omni-liberal mean? Because this is the least liberal position that you take that I can possibly imagine. Okay. I'm sitting here.
You're, just to be clear, you're non-responsive to every single thing I just said, and now we can make random vague appeals to the Bill of Rights or whatever other bullshit we always do. We have nothing to say.
I'm not being non-responsive at all. I want to be very responsive. I am taking the populist position, and you were taking the establishment position.
You're taking an authoritarian position, and I'm taking a constitutional position. Yes, just to be clear, you're an authoritarian. Yes.
How, in what way am I being an authoritarian?
Because you're
saying I don't trust the government.
What do you mean? Of course you trust the government. You just said that you're celebrating Kash Patel coming in.
I'm hopeful.
When you say government,
I'm hopeful.
Just to be clear, so people.
What do we have today?
When you say government, you mean the left. You don't trust the left. When Donald Trump is in there, you trust. Name one thing that Donald Trump did or said that you didn't trust.
I didn't trust a lot of his decisions in COVID.
Okay, so the COVID stuff is the one thing. So you didn't like the vaccine. Anything non-COVID related?
I don't know. I mean, it's been 5 years since it's been 4 years since he's been in there.
He was the president for 4 years. He didn't do a single thing that you disagree with. Say a single thing you disagree with. You can't think of it.
Some of the things he said, I thought it was very awkward the way he phrased some of the stuff. I didn't like the phrasing there on some of the things. Look,
can you give any positions of his that you disagree with?
Most of his positions, I think he spent too much money. I think he brought the two critiques that I think are valid of Trump, the most two valid critiques of Trump. And this is the interesting time that we're coming to right now, which is, amongst MAGA, which I definitely identify as being MAGA. In MAGA, there is a split, which most of your audience probably is unaware of, which is that split is, do we trust Trump blindly or do we not, or do we question policy?
To be clear, that split doesn't exist.
You're wrong.
Everybody trusts Trump.
Quite the contrary. Then you haven't been reading my tweets, and I understand I'm not the same size that your channel is, but I'm saying right now, I've been critical. I think that when he's saying I don't want to have a debt ceiling, I was like, this guy spent more money than anyone. He's the one person who really needs a debt ceiling, and I disagree with him on that. With respect to some of his appointments, I think that there's all sorts of issues, and I had issues with Mike Johnson. I don't think Mike Johnson is someone I think that he's an establishmentarian. I think he's the perfect guy for you if you're pro establishment. And I think that, and I can recognize that there's shrewdness in saying that, look, it would have been way too big a hassle to try and find a different replacement who would gain enough support amongst the GOP in order to become Speaker of the House. But I think that as far as politically, the stances of Mike Johnson are so anti-populist, so anti-MAGA, that I think that he's distasteful. I think.
How did you feel about the tax cuts?
I mean, the tax cuts, I know the left loves saying they were tax cuts for the rich.
I'm not asking about if they're I'm just saying, because this is the thing. We'll say like, oh, well, I don't like his rampant spending. Did you support the tax bill? Of course I did. That was amazing. So it doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless. It's a meaningless criticism. I don't like the spending. It's just like a vague random.
You're going back to 2017. And what I'd say is at that point, he was trying to jack up a stagnant economy, which had been stagnant since 2008.
That's not true at all.
100% true.
That, to be clear, that's by no metric and no measure is that even remotely true. What are you talking about? By what measure?
Do we have a growth year of 3% under Obama?
A growth year of 3%? I don't know for an entire year, but I know that from 2013 onwards, the economy.
A good month here and there.
You think just a good month?
I'm saying what I'm saying is we were growing at a rate of, I think I'm talking top of my head and trying to think back now, 12 years. So my recollection is that it was basically like it was somewhere between 1% and 2% a year at best.
Sure, rebounding from a catastrophe.
Which rebounding should be better. Rebounding, that's the thing. Here's the thing. What happened? All the growth that we saw from Biden after COVID. After COVID, it's like all of a sudden this surge in employment, surge in economy, surge in everything coming back. Why? Because everything had been shut down, and now there's growth back. So you would think that it should have been rebounding even stronger under Obama, and yet it didn't. No one was happy. You keep thinking that everyone was like that. Everything was like really glory days. The reason Trump was elected the first time and the second time was purely because the left created this person they claim is a monster. You all created him.
Okay, so then for Donald Trump, you keep saying this like it's such a stupid point. You understand that you guys like created Obama and you guys created Biden by the same logic too, right?
No. How is Obama created?
Oh my God.
How is Obama created? How was Obama created by the right?
I mean, things like the Middle Eastern wars probably didn't help from Bush, right? Things like No Child Left Behind, things like the war on
No
drugs.
Child Left Behind is what created Obama.
Why did you just pick out one thing of three different things I just said?
I don't know.
I'm saying that I'm saying that all of these things. I don't think a lot of people were very happy with Bush's presidency. I think that our
Bush
opinions.
was terrible.
I think that our opinions.
Bush was terrible.
Okay,
he was terrible.
What are we disagreeing on?
We're not disagreeing on that. Bush was a disaster. Awful. I hate Bush. You're never going to get
so
me.
what is it? So
you're never going to hear me.
I know now
Bush.
because you guys all have to. It's part of the new marching orders. You have to hate every old. It is. I understand.
And I'm going to tell you.
I'm just saying that. How then could you not say if everybody hated Bush? How did that not create Obama? What are you buying? Are you saying that like the Democrats literally created Trump? That like Obama in a test tube like bred Trump out of a lab? Or
are we having a real conversation here?
I can't tell. I'm not sure.
Obama changed the culture of this country in ways that we are still reeling from, and I pray one day we find a way out of. But I don't know how that's going to happen. And the way they changed the nature of this country is that Obama introduced a concept that if you disagree with me, it's because of who you are and the fact that you are genuinely an evil person. Prior to Obama, the perspective of most people in political discourse was, you love America, I love America. We have different visions as to what is healthy for America.
I think that statement alone could qualify you for like antipsychotic medication. You have never listened to any political commentary in your life if you think that prior to Obama, people like Rush Limbaugh, people weren't demonizing the Clintons, weren't talking about how evil the socialists, the commies were, the Democrats were. This was mainstream Republican political discourse across every single talk radio station, across all of Fox News. The idea that Obama might be one of the most delusional things I've ever heard in my entire life. Go ahead.
You cut me off rather than actually hearing my point.
Okay.
My point is not as far as like talking about the political leaders. I'm saying talking about their supporters. I'm saying talking about there being tens of millions of racists in this country. That is a new position for a political leader to take that Obama introduced. And he did it in a very insidious way. He would never say they're racist. He would say, well, some folks aren't comfortable with people who are coming across the border or whose skin is a little darker than theirs.
You don't think politicians are making accusations of racism during like the civil rights era or?
So now we're going back to the 60s. You're saying that's okay because
you said the first time in U.S. history. There was...
in my recollection.
Okay, gotcha.
The first time in my recollection, we didn't hear the demonization. We didn't see the demonization. You never heard once Trump demonize tens of millions of people who vote against him the way we heard Biden echo when he gave that red hatred speech about how ultra MAGA is the biggest threat facing our country.
You understand that when Biden made that speech, that Biden literally said he wasn't talking about even a majority of.
Oh, I understand that.
Number one, and you understand that Donald Trump has a disparaging. You know that Donald Trump is literally the guy, and I'm sure that you giggle along every time who gives like political nicknames to his opponents, right?
Those are individuals.
Yeah, and you don't think that they represent the people?
Yeah, he'll make a joke about Rosie O'Donnell, make a joke about Nancy Pelosi, he'll make a joke about Chuck Schumer, but that's not making.
And he'll make comments about immigrants coming into the country, about wanting to ban Muslims coming into the country, about how he'll make comments about Venezuelans taking over apartments and Haitians eating cats and dogs.
So you think that when he said the Mexicans, they're rapists, you think he was saying that all Mexicans are rapists? Is that how you interpret it?
Well, so
are you arguing?
I only did English in high school, but when you say some of them are good people, the implication is most of them are bad people. Yes, correct. That's why you're having a huge split. A big argument right now, at least online for MAGA, is whether or not Indians smell too gross to come into this country and should have H-1B visas, or whether we should keep them out.
I don't think you even believe what you're saying.
Okay.
Because the whole they're rapist things, he says they're sending their worst. He's saying they're crooks, they're criminals, they're rapists. And he pauses, they're rapists. And everyone's like, oh, wow. He's saying they are rapists instead of they're rapists.
Do you think Biden was talking about all MAGA Republicans?
No,
all MAGA?
He called them ultra MAGA. I don't know what the hell ultra MAGA is.
What do you think he meant by that?
I definitely felt he meant me.
Okay.
I felt he meant me, that I am a
That's
threat.
Great. We're not talking about you. Do you think he meant most of MAGA?
I think he meant every person who listens to me.
Do you think he meant most of MAGA?
I think he meant most people who. Do you
think he meant most of MAGA?
I think he meant people who distrust the government.
Okay. Do you see how convenient it is that we have to actually invent new language to describe what Trump actually meant, but for Biden we have to ignore what he actually said and then like invent like whole new meaning there.
You mean like peacefully and patriotically that you invented that was a way of saying attack and that's the insurrection?
Hold on. That was an hour-long speech.
That was
he called to fight like 10 times in this speech. And why would I take the one time where he says, I know you'll be marching down to the Capitol, where they don't happen to march down to the Capitol and then engage in a riot? Was that a coincidence?
And you can find every political leader on the left and the right saying fight, 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 fight. You can find video montages of them saying fight and fight. He said, we're going to fight for our rights. That's not saying go in there and blow up a building or kill people.
Give me one other time where they have called for a massive amount of people to go to an area knowing that there was going to be no, not peacefully and patriotically.
He said peacefully and patriotically.
Oh, so what? All of them misheard the message?
No, what I'm saying is
no. How did a riot happen if that's what he said? Did they all of them too stupid to understand English and they just happened to engage in a riot? Explain how that happened.
First and foremost,
you're not going to explain it. You're just going to keep dancing around it.
No, I think some of them got violent and that they shouldn't have gotten violent. Does that mean that he's telling them to get violent?
So it was a coincidence.
No, it's not a coincidence.
So what happened? So he sent them down there, and the people that he riled up and sent down there, they got violent? Why?
What does that even mean? I don't understand the words.
Now the English language fails you to describe the most obvious thing in the world.
What is, when he says go down peacefully and patriotically.
He didn't say go down peacefully and patriotically. You're inventing words. He said, I know you'll be going down there soon and peacefully and patriotically making your voices heard.
So what part did I make up then?
He didn't say go peacefully and patriotically. He didn't say that. He never ordered anybody to be peaceful.
He said, and you talk about how he said fight 10 times. And he said, one of those times is he said, he said,
you got to fight like hell or you're going to lose your country.
Yeah, you got to fight like hell or you're going to lose your country, which is the exact same language that we've heard from Hillary Rodham Clinton. We've heard that from Schumer. We've heard that from Obama. We've heard that from every
so then can I find
leader
there
from
people
Biden?
Marching down to a federal building to stop an election?
Why is it that when he says fight like hell, because of this context, all of a sudden he's starting insurrection?
Because after he said it for the first time in U.S. history, we had to delay the certification of our vote because he was trying to overturn the outcome of the election. And there's no other example of that happening.
When he's trying to ensure, I'll tell you right now, the reason MAGA is there is because he called them there because he lied to them for over a year that the election was false. For over a year. The election happened 2 months earlier.
Yeah, and 12 months before that, he was saying mail-in ballots are going to be rigged.
Oh, that was the same thing that Jerry Nadler had said and that Chuck Schumer had said, and everyone had said that mail-in ballots were the most distrustable
the
things
difference is
in
that when
the world.
Democrats made that contention, they were doing it to state bodies that then ensured the integrity of their machines. One of the big criticisms prior to this that gets cited a lot is Democrats saying, we're not sure if we trust the way that these machines work, so all of them were disconnected from the internet for the elections. They weren't able to be accessed online. They were saying things. There was not a single thing that Donald Trump ever said to make mail-in ballots more secure.
What do you mean? What does that
Just
mean?
what I said. What part of what I just said did you not understand? Donald Trump didn't say a single way to improve the mail-in ballot system. He said we need to ban all of it.
What words could any human have said that would have made that mail-in ballots more secure?
I don't know. We could change the authentication process on how we said.
Was there an authentication process? Because it seemed like there wasn't.
Notice how you just pivoted because you were so fucking wrong with what you just said?
No, nothing.
Donald Trump didn't spend a single ounce of effort. You know why he did that? Because he knew the Democrats would take it more seriously to all the COVID restrictions and to mail-in.
Really?
Why are you looking at me like you don't understand? He said multiple times, show up and vote on that day. Go down on that day and vote. We know the Dems are going to use mail-in ballots, and we know all the mail-in ballots are going to be rigged. And in every single case where they tried to present evidence, most of it bullshit, that it was rigged, it all failed.
Really?
Yes, really.
Most of the cases every case that they brought in that showed BS, first of all, that's not true. As more and more time is going on, we're actually finding more evidence.
That is absolutely not true.
That is
second statement to qualify you for antipsychotics. You're delusional. That is not true.
Really?
We have never found evidence of widespread voter fraud or anything outcome determinative.
You just changed outcome determinative. All of a sudden, we're just introducing, widespread, outcome determinative.
Because that's the only voter fraud that matters. Not my grandma might have written her name wrong, or some guy voted in favor of his dad who didn't know he got the ballot.
What about the authentication process, which all of a sudden, authentication processes traditionally had always knocked out roughly 7% of all ballots, and in 2020 knocked out less than 1%. How is that possible? Tell me how that's logically possible.
Sure, I can.
There was no authentication process. There was none.
Why that might be the case?
Because they decided we're not going to have an authentication process.
Oh, then how were 1% rejected?
I said less than 1%. How
were any rejected? There was no process. Because what you just said was ridiculous. That's right. What you just said was ridiculous.
It's not.
It was ridiculous.
Why? You think every ballot place did the exact same thing?
No, I didn't say every ballot place did the exact same thing.
Less than 1% means that a handful of places were doing it, but by and large, there was.
So some were. What are you even saying?
I'm saying that 6.5%. I'm saying roughly 6% of things that should have been knocked out were never knocked out. That would have been knocked out in any other election.
That's not how numbers or stats work, right?
What?
Traditionally, mail-in ballots were used for some exceptional circumstances.
Yes.
You either can't get to a polling place, you request a ballot, you're military overseas, or right? on a case where you have the mail-in ballot rate maybe going up 100 times,
yes.
why would you expect the error rate to stay the exact same when your cohort is changing dramatically?
I would expect it to go up dramatically because these are people doing.
You don't understand.
Logic.
Don't understand.
Logic.
No.
Just use logic.
It's not. No. You're not using logic. You don't understand stats or numbers.
True.
You're not using logic.
Well, relax for a second. Think for a second. The people who vote every time in mail-in ballots, they're more accustomed to the process. They're less likely to make an error in the process. When you have millions and millions of first-time persons using it, does it not make sense that there would be a higher error rate rather than a lower error rate?
No.
Okay. I
don't even know if the people who use mail-in ballots use them all the time.
Okay.
I don't do the military, but my understanding is, isn't the average military contract like 5 years? Isn't that like an average military contract? In that case, they probably only do one mail-in ballot. So it wouldn't surprise me.
Assuming that military, the only form of people actually doing.
My guess is it's probably the large. Somebody can Google it. My guess is that's probably the largest cohort of people that do the mail-in ballots. Probably military people.
Okay.
Do you acknowledge that Donald Trump was trying to direct his DOJ to lie to states about investigations? Do you think that's?
I wasn't there. What do you reference?
When Donald Trump was telling his Department of Justice that I need you guys to send letters out to 7 different states saying that we found a lot of evidence of voter fraud. So
I think he got frantic down the stretch there. I think a lot of things he
frantic.
Did, I think a lot of things he did there are things he should not have done.
So then, would you agree that they were? Would you agree that they were authoritarian in nature?
I don't know. I wouldn't call that authoritarian. No, I wouldn't call it authoritarian.
Okay, so when the
it's authoritarian if there's punishment. If there's punishment if you fail to abide by it. What punishment came to anyone who failed to abide by something that he had?
Authoritarianism is only when punishment.
Well, if I tell you right now, go outside and go to your bank and give me $1,000, and you say go F yourself, in that case, that no one would say I'm being authoritarian.
What if you tell me? What if you tell me if I don't do it, you're going to fire me and then find someone else who will?
Okay, fine. And what came first? I don't know how we know that actually happened.
Wait, because there's testimony from like 20 different people.
Oh, is this what we're going with the J6 hearing? Is that where
I'm not going with the J6 hearing? I'm going from testimony from Steve Engel. I'm going from testimony from Rosen, from testimony from Donahue, from testimony from Hirschman, from testimony from Giuliani, Sidney Powell. What do you mean?
I don't know.
Which people do you want to talk about?
I don't know which state.
Oh, you don't trust any of those people.
I didn't say that. You just threw words in my mouth. You literally just took a sentence and threw. What I said is I literally don't know about that because I never was looking at that. You're throwing at me this data point, which you're basically saying these are things he said.
What do you think it means that you don't know? You don't.
What I'm saying is I was not following that.
You don't care about the fact that the president of the United States tried. You had all these things to say to Merrick Garland, but you don't care that the president of the United States trying to order his DOJ to lie to states for the outcome of an election.
I wasn't there for that. When did this come out?
It was part of the whole J6 committee.
The J6. Oh, that's what it is. See, yeah, I didn't follow the J6 committee.
Okay, because you don't give a about the integrity of the government of the election. So when you say Merrick Garland is corrupt, your words are hollow and meaningless. They don't mean anything.
What I'm saying is, no, I didn't follow anything on the J6 committee because that started. It was because it was attacking committee.
Daddy Trump.
It was
your cult leader.
Committee.
And you feel bad and weird when they're attacking Daddy cult leader.
You think this is being clever when I established early on here that there's a lot of things he says and does that I disagree with, including things
great. And I've debated Hassan and other people that use this weird tactic. I didn't agree with it. I'm not asking if you agree with it, if you like it. I don't know why you're even giving me that opinion. I'm asking how you feel about it in terms of authoritarianism or legality.
This is the jump that you did. This is you're not following you're basically trying to jump from one thing to another, desperately trying to like make score points. And I'm actually trying to have a conversation with you.
Okay, here, let me be very clear about my line of no, you're saying I'm jumping. I'm not just because I'm bringing up something you don't have an answer to doesn't mean I'm jumping. You're just falling behind. So
I'm not falling. No. I'm not falling behind. You're changing the landscape as to what it is that we're talking about. I start talking to you about an issue with respect to that, and I admit to you that I don't think he did everything properly and with respect to between November and
yes, we call that equivocation.
That's not equivocation.
It's equivocating.
You call that authoritarian.
When I say he's doing something authoritarian that is breaking the law, probably should be, and you say he did some things that were kind of that's called equivocation.
No, I'm not equivocating. I'm saying the issues that you're bringing up, I don't even know anything about them. Why don't I know about them? Because I didn't watch January 6th. Then you use that as a basis to try and attack me and saying I didn't watch January 6th instead of asking me, why didn't you watch J6? And you come to what you have to do to try to win a point is you want to try and say, oh, you didn't watch January 6th because it was attacking Daddy Trump. You see, you're trying to characterize and label me and put me in a box.
I am jumping. You're right, because I understand you're going to say I didn't watch J6 because that committee was put together in an illegal manner because Pelosi didn't include people from the Republican Party in a proper way to put together a committee. I know all the dumb talking points.
You're again.
Tell me what I'm wrong about. Tell me. Okay, then tell me why it was illegal. Go ahead. Okay, tell me where you're going to go.
I'm going to go. What I'm saying is there's no cross-examination. There's no evidence coming forward. There's no opportunity by the other side to examine any of the evidence that's being presented, which is what you would have in any standard type of normal proceeding, which is going to be antagonistic to a particular individual.
It's not a court case. There is no cross-examination in a court case.
So in that case, you're saying it's proven that you're using their conclusions as if they prove a point for you. So don't tell me that's not a court case.
Hold on. Just because something is not proven beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal court
at all.
I understand.
At all.
No,
there's zero proof. That's what I mean. Zero proof.
So it's either in criminal court or nothing.
No, it's not criminal court or nothing. What I'm saying is there's at least a chance for the other side to examine the claims that are being presented as to whether there's any legitimacy.
And you know what their examination sounded like? It sounded like this. 2 words. It was I plead the fifth, and the second was I need absolute criminal immunity for everything I did as president. That was their examination of the other side. You can lean your head down all you want, okay?
Because you jump again. Now you're trying to find some sort of way of legitimizing the J6 thing. Even though, do you disagree with me that there should be a right to examine the evidence?
There was. Pelosi gave an opportunity for 5 conservative members to join that committee, and they said no.
5 that she would choose.
No, that's not true.
She didn't let Jim Jordan on there.
She denied 2 of the 5 picks.
Why?
3 would have been because they were directly implicated by that investigation.
Oh, were they?
Yes, they were.
How could she know that before there's a committee to actually conduct the investigation?
Because you guys are so f***ing shameless. You did it all out in the open and in public because people like Jim Jordan are literally publicly trying to circumvent our electoral process. It's not hard to figure it out.
Jim Jordan was publicly circumventing the process.
Yes, when they were saying things like, we will join you in Congress to resist the certification of the vote, and we will join you in trying to make sure that this election isn't certified by Pence via the ECA or whatever. Yes.
You mean like what happened in 2016, right?
Really?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Who objected? Who objected? Who objected? Nobody did. Nobody did. They talked about it, but you have to pair your objections with one person in the Senate and one person in the House, and there was no formal objections process, which never happened. So that comparison was bullshit. Thank you.
Why is that BS?
Because there was no paired senator or representative to actually put forth a formal objection to the certification of that vote. It didn't happen.
Okay. So and your point as far as that there wasn't an effort for them to try and step in the way of it? Or
there wasn't an effort coordinated by the sitting president to circumvent the outcome of the election like there was with this one.
When you're saying an effort to circumvent, I'm sorry, I missed the word.
As in to break procedure with the Electoral Count Act, or to get enough people to object to certification that they could delay it indefinitely.
He definitely was trying to.
So that they could delay it indefinitely, kick it down the road, and remain president for another 4 years.
What he was looking for is he was looking to get that electoral count under 270 so that they could turn over to kind of a constitutional convention, turn over to the states, and have each of the states vote based one vote per state. That was the plan.
Which would have been stealing. That was one of the plans. That would have been stealing the election.
That's your position. I think that it's an interesting legal position.
It's not an interesting legal position
that we will never ever know the answer to, and
we never would have known it anyway.
We never will, because there was a new law that went into effect because apparently the Democrats were afraid that Mike Pence actually had the authority.
That's strange because Mike Pence didn't feel that way,
yeah,
and neither did Trump or anybody else. Nobody felt like he had the authority to do that.
Really? Apparently Eastman thought he had the authority.
No, he didn't. That's why he said. That's why when somebody references the Constitution when they're talking about a law, what they're telling you is they want to break the law because they think it's unconstitutional. Which is what I don't know where these confusing looks come from.
Because when you say, I don't even understand that phrase. Because if I say you have a First Amendment right to spout idiocy, that doesn't mean that I'm referencing the Constitution, and I'm not saying that you can break the law. That's why I don't understand.
If you're referencing a law and saying I think that this law is unconstitutional because you've got a constitutional right to do this, you're breaking the law. The wording in the documents in both memos was this is where we're going to break ways from the ECA, which was the law that dictated how the election.
ECA doesn't dictate law. This is a mistake.
ECA was a law. The ECA was a law.
ECA establishes policy. That's not law. There's a very there's a very significant distinction between policy and law. And I think this is where you're getting a little bit confused, respectfully, because it doesn't make sense to just sort of read in here. I'll ask you right now, if in fact Mike Pence did not have the authority to do that, why would the Congress...
This is not a real argument.
Why would Congress...
Congress can pass laws for any number of reasons.
So why would they pass a law?
Argument.
So you knew what my argument was.
I already knew what your argument was. Yes, so it's the same defunct argument because the counter that I have is so much stronger. You're saying, why did they pass a law to clarify language for something that might have been hazy or whatever? Then my question would be, if the language was so hazy, then why did Eastman and everybody else feel like they had to break ways with the ECA?
Because that had never happened before.
No, because they wanted to break the law. They wanted to part ways. Well, hold on, I'm sorry. Your argument is even self-defeating. You said that they changed the language of the ECA. Why would that matter? It's just a policy.
It wasn't the ECA. No, they codified. There was a law they tried passing. They actually did pass.
They made to the Electoral Count Act.
They passed a law after
amending
2021.
amending the Electoral Count Act. which is the same thing that Eastman wanted to break ways with. But I thought that was just a policy, so why would they even need to change it?
Well, it's actually an interesting question.
It's not an interesting question. It was obvious what was going on. They were trying to break the law to entrench Trump as president for another 4 years against the actual vote.
I apologize.
You're good.
I apologize for that. You having fun?
No. If anybody on the Democratic side tried to do this, you would be out in arms.
I would express to them the law the same I'm expressing to you now.
No, you're not. It's such an unbelievably hyper-partisan take. It's insane to me.
It's not even remotely hyper-partisan. I'll tell you right now, I came in here telling you about GoodLawgic versus Mershon, which is a lawsuit I brought in my own name, trying to stand up for the rights of the criminally accused to come out there and speak without being silenced by an oppressive government. You came out there saying that government's never oppressive, which I
never said that in my entire life.
I'd love to see if under a Trump administration, you're not going to worry about the Trump government being oppressive. You know, for the last 4 years, you've been enjoying the Biden administration and you think it hasn't been oppressive. And I'll tell you right now, if you weren't sitting in that camp, it's been very, very oppressive. It has been. People have been canceled. Judge Terry Dowdy referred to it as the worst abuse of First Amendment rights in American history.
In what regards?
With respect to when he examined the Twitter files in the case that was brought by Missouri versus.
Hold on, excuse me. The Twitter files. Who did that happen under?
That
was the Trump administration. How the fuck is Biden getting blamed for that? He wasn't even in office.
This brings us because it continued through 2021. It happened in 2021. It related specifically to speech.
It's unbelievable.
It related to, what are you talking about?
How you
the Twitter files.
This is what I'm talking about. When you catch
the Twitter files.
And also,
the Twitter files.
Control of everything.
The Twitter
at the same
files
time.
were silencing people about COVID treatments. The Twitter files.
A lot of this happened in Trump's administration.
And yet Terry Dowdy referred to it as the Biden administration is the worst abuse of First Amendment rights. They silence.
Does he control the flow of time? Is this Dr. Strange?
It's not Dr. Strange. It's that the Biden administration
COVID lockdown and the majority of the
Jen Psaki is the one who came out there and said, we're working with Facebook to make sure that we're going to keep people silenced and then we're going to shut people up if they basically implying anything contrary to what our establishment message is. That's Jen Psaki. You want to somehow say, well, this is under Trump. This is the Twitter files under Trump. It's Jen Psaki talking about how they're coordinating with Facebook.
Who's Jen Psaki?
Jen Psaki was the press secretary for Biden.
When was the most oppressive, restrictive stuff done on YouTube and Facebook?
I don't.
It was during COVID under Trump.
What did I just say?
I don't care what Republicans or whatever are saying now, post hoc or whatever, to make anything.
That's not post hoc.
Do you acknowledge
a finding from the court that this is the worst abuse of First Amendment rights in American history?
The court. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Give me more clarification on what you're talking about.
Missouri v. Biden. It was a case that was brought brought down in New Orleans. They were saying that, and they were looking to get a stay and stop the CDC and Biden. And at the time, I think it was KJP was at that time the press secretary. Stop them from interceding and shutting down various right-wing figures.
The press secretary interceded in a court case and shut the court case down in a state court case? Was it a federal case? Help me understand. Go ahead.
In Missouri v. Biden, Attorney General Andrew Bailey headed up based on findings from the Twitter files, he headed up a case against Biden and the U.S. government and CISA and various agencies. And there was like 50 different individuals, and including KJP and Biden, and to try and stop them from coordinating with various social media platforms to shut down right-wing conservative people who were expressing opinions that the government did not like.
Okay.
They looked to get a stay. In order to get a stay, you have to show the judge that you have a likelihood of success on the merits. So the judge has to, at this stage, a cursory review of what evidence you have to show that you're likely to
stay. I think also requires you to show that there's going to be some irreparable harm suffered if you don't get the stay.
Correct.
Vote, right? Yeah.
That's correct. Yes. So, but one of them is that you have a likelihood of success
on the merits. Yeah.
And Judge Terry Dowdy, who heard that case, said that he viewed this as likely the worst abuse of First Amendment rights in American history.
And he made that comment based on a pretrial appeal, a motion for a stay,
which has a lot more evidence given contrary to that position. In other words, the defendants had.
Just to be clear, I'm so sorry. So the J6 committee, which had hundreds or thousands of individuals involved, which involved hundreds or thousands of hours of testimony given under oath. All of that doesn't matter. But a pretrial motion, I'm so sorry, real quick, what is the standard of evidence for a pretrial motion? I don't know, I'm an idiot.
The standard is likely success on the merits. What do you mean?
No. What is the standard of evidence for me to put in like a complaint? If I'm filing a lawsuit against somebody, what's the standard of evidence for that complaint?
The standard.
There's none. There's zero.
No, there's no standard.
So why would I care what a judge would say based on, you're saying on the merits? There's no evidentiary hearings. There's no, what do we?
Stephen, just because you understand a little about state doesn't mean that you understand what you just said.
Okay, then explain to me, because I'm not understanding. Okay, go ahead. Because it sounds to me like you're saying that a guy filed a lawsuit, and the judge looked at the complaint itself, and he was like, well, should I allow the stay or not? Well, sure, even though none of this has been evaluated, or what did you say, cross-examined by the other side?
Yes, correct. Cross-examination. This is subjected to cross-examination because the others, that's the difference. That's why this has a lot more credibility. Because when you bring a complaint, if I bring a complaint against you, I can write whatever the hell I want to write. There's no proof. I could be making up everything I'm writing there. If I want to get the court to act and do something, and I want to get a stay, I need to establish 3 prongs, one of which is I need to convince the court that I'm likely to succeed in the merits. I show them my evidence, and I show you my evidence. You have an opportunity to see what I am showing the judge. You have an opportunity to refute it.
So what was the outcome of this court case?
The outcome of this application was Judge Terry Dowdy wrote a 118-page stay or issuance of a stay, and what he said was that this is the worst abuse of First Amendment rights in American history that was being conducted by the Biden administration. The stay was to stop them from interceding and from communicating with Facebook and various social media platforms to tell them, hey, because what they found in the Twitter files is there's a hotline that they would have. They would call up and they'd say, Joe 81706 is spreading. You need to silence this post that he said or shut down his account.
So the Twitter files didn't find that at any place.
This is I'm telling you right now. This is what I
read the Twitter files, so yeah, they didn't say any case.
I read the Twitter files. Okay. So what I'm saying is that there was far too much interaction between the government and these social media platforms, which Jen Psaki proudly touted that we're working together with Facebook, which is something that should terrify you if you actually think about it for a moment.
No, if you think about it for more than 2 seconds, it makes sense why this type of coordination would take place.
Why? Why?
Because intelligence agencies might have access to some information that.
Yeah, so if there's some sort of avalanche that's coming, if there's some sort of tidal wave, typhoon, I want them to be able to express themselves through Facebook and have Facebook send out notices. I 100% agree with you on that. It makes sense.
If there are foreign actors that are trying to compromise social media platforms, and an intelligence agency has access to that information, so you don't think they should make that information available to any of the social media platforms?
When you say foreign actors who are doing what? Well, I couldn't hear you.
Who are trying to, I don't know, impersonate American citizens on social media accounts?
Impersonate American citizens? No.
I don't.
If they were trying to commit a crime, like let's say you said.
Wait, so if our intelligence agencies know that there's 1 million Chinese foreign people,
that's not their business.
What do you mean that's not their business?
That's not what they should be doing.
Okay.
I
don't want to go down here because I'm going to tell myself I have this argument.
No. You think that's what the government should be doing?
What was the outcome of that court case?
The outcome was that he issued a 100-page stay. It ended up being overturned later on.
Okay.
It was overturned, but not on the basis of lack of not refuting his finding of fact, but as far as which parties it could be enacted against.
So who was this?
In other words, at its highest level.
Case was this a state case or was this a federal case?
It was a federal case.
Okay. And then it was overturned.
It went to the circuit court, I think, as I recall, and I'm thinking off the top of my head because I'm going back a year.
Okay.
And a lot's happened over the last year. But as I recall, I don't remember if it might have even gone to SCOTUS, and they ultimately, the ultimate termination with respect to this, the case is still going on, but with respect to the stay itself, I think that there was an issue as to which parties.
Okay, because earlier when you said that there were like 50 named people, I know that you guys like to just like throw a million random things in every lawsuit because like apparently the more the merrier. So that's not surprising.
That's what lawyers do. That's what lawyers are always going to. You should.
Respectfully, I disagree. Seeing as a lot of these people are not being disbarred for their behavior, I think that they engaged in exceptionally bad. But you're just going to say it's all political in nature.
No, that's another way of chilling speech.
Yes.
It's not. Oh, it's not chilling speech. So if I
actually, I think any lawyer should be able to file and allege anything in any lawsuit ever, regardless. I think that's a really good use of the system, and it's definitely not wasting anybody's time or misleading the public in any way. I think it's a really good use of our freedom of speech.
You really trust our system so much.
It's not about trusting our systems. It's about people like you who want to abuse and use the system under the guise of free speech. We're just looking for cover to lie and mislead people. It's insane.
Seeing you talk about how much you trust the system under President Trump. I'm looking
probably significantly less, given that he's legitimately trying to undermine the system, because Donald Trump is doing doing all the things that you're accusing Biden of doing. I already told you one thing is trying to give direction to the DOJ in order to lie to states about election outcomes. That's insane to me.
You think that's 2020? We're looking to, let's look ahead to 2020.
People like Kash Patel, I think, are frightening to me because he's coming into office with a list of enemies and he wants to investigate political opponents.
I think that wasn't what happened with Trump? You think he wasn't being investigated by Alvin Bragg? You think Fannie Willis, some DA in Georgia coming after him?
Sorry, are we talking about the federal government and Biden, or are we talking about New York State?
I'm asking you. Think that the whole Jack Smith
me earlier of jumping and jumping and jumping.
Okay. You think that wasn't happening with Jack Smith saying we're gonna prosecute Trump for taking documents, but we're not going to prosecute Biden for that? We went through the whole document. I don't want to have the whole Biden.
Because you're completely totally wrong about it. Yeah, I understand. That's good.
It's nice to be able to synopsize with just like, this is my position on it and you suck, and you do it very effectively, but I don't think it
we can read all the stuff. The difference between the Biden case was somebody finding a document in a garage and notifying I don't know if it's the documents department, it's not FARA, fuck me, the Housing for All the Documents. I don't know if it was
Presidential Records Act.
Sure, no, there's a name for a department that has all this shit. But it was them notifying the federal officials versus Donald Trump obstructing over and over and over again to maintain control of his documents for as long as possible, and being on record saying multiple times, like, I should have declassified these things, but I didn't. And you won't believe who had this battle plan for fucking Iran.
Yeah, I agree with you. We wasted enough time on that.
Okay,
we wasted enough time.
Gotcha.
Because I think that's kind of whatever. I mean, that's such an evidentiary thing. It's ridiculous. It's evidentiary as to like.
Well, don't worry. At least now we don't ever have to get to the evidentiary part because it's all been anyway. So
because Jack Smith never got confirmed.
No, because Donald Trump is in office now, and you apparently can't prosecute a sitting president, and it would never happen under Trump anyway. He's shown us that.
But I was asking you a different question. I was asking you jumped back to 2020.
Different question.
The question I was asking you is, what are your concerns about Trump going into a second term?
In terms of like my freedom of speech, or just of the government in general, or what?
Are there specific concerns that you think that certain people are going to be punished, or certain people are going to be subjected to all sorts of unconscionable type of activities?
I think the biggest concern, I think that when Donald Trump came in for his first term, I don't think he had any idea how the government worked or what anything was. And so when he wanted to do things
That's probably true.
Prosecute or persecute.
If he does it,
enemies,
if it's against someone you don't like, it's persecute. If it's against someone you like, then it's prosecute. And I think we have that on both sides. Do we need to, are we having like a time?
I did a thing. I don't know what that means. No. Hold on. First of all, wait. You just described your position, not mine. My worry is that when somebody like Donald Trump comes in, and now he knows he needs a sycophantic attorney general, because even Barr wasn't willing to go as far as Trump was. He knows that he needs Barr is terrible. That's hilarious. He knows that he needs somebody more sycophantic in the DOJ. He knows he needs somebody more sycophantic in the FBI. That Donald Trump might realize he literally can just say, "Hey, let's investigate these guys. Hey, let's go after these guys." They already did it with Hunter Biden, which all turned out. Even the foundation for that.
Who went after Hunter Biden?
What do you?
Trump? Biden's DOJ did.
Yes, but when did that start?
Oh, okay. See, this is, you play into the exact same thing you criticize the right of doing.
When was the start of the Hunter Biden stuff?
I don't know. It wasn't early enough because they all of a sudden had a statute of limitations issue.
It was when Giuliani and Trump were calling Zelensky, asking for them to announce investigations publicly. It was under Donald Trump. Hold on, just to be clear, because you're trying to make it sound
DOJ. No, you are. You are doing it. You are. The DOJ started nothing.
Number two.
There was no case filed against Hunter under the Trump administration.
Yes, because they didn't have a way to start a case, because it was all bullshit. That's why he got impeached the first time. Yes. And also the Twitter files and everything was investigating behavior that started under Donald Trump. Yes. This going into the next administration is not the same question that we're asking in terms of like where things started.
Who prosecuted Hunter Biden?
Those cases eventually ended up under Biden's DOJ.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't Trump that prosecuted Hunter.
It was all of that investigatory stuff started under Trump.
Did his DOJ go after him?
That they were investigating.
But did they file charges against him?
No, because they weren't able to find anything because it was all bullshit.
So who found it? Biden's DOJ found it?
Biden's DOJ did eventually find it, yes.
But then why are you saying it's BS if Biden's DOJ found it?
I'm saying that the beginning of that investigation all started on BS. And unfortunately, Biden isn't willing to play the same way the Republicans are. When Republicans are being investigated, you know why that didn't happen? That's when Donald Trump says, "Oh, Comey, I'm firing him." Biden allows his DOJ to investigate him. I don't know if he should do the same thing. I think he should act like Republicans and just fire everybody that's involved in any bad stuff against him. Because you're very happy that investigation happened. You're very happy that we got the Durham report under Biden.
Do I ever do that to you? Have I done that to you once? You sit here saying what I'm happy about, and you make assumptions about what my position is without even bothering. Why bring me in here? You could just put a cardboard cutout here of me and just say, this is what Joe thinks about things, and I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to tell you how stupid that is, as opposed to actually asking me how I feel about it. I didn't care about Hunter Biden. I think Hunter Biden is a stupid waste of time. I think Joe Biden is corrupt as hell, but I didn't care at all about Hunter Biden. But you sit here assuming that I'm very happy about it. I'm simply pointing out that the actual investigation of Hunter Biden happened under Biden's DOJ, not under Trump's DOJ. You're sitting here saying he's going to be so persecutive, and yet for one reason or another, he never persecuted Hunter Biden. That happened, and the only reason that happened,
what do you think this argument is proving? My issue wasn't who's investigated by which DOJ. My issue is what are the means by which these investigations are starting? What is the purpose by which these investigations are starting?
Why does that matter? How many investigations are starting?
Why does it matter how an investigation is started?
What I'm saying
it starts because a political opponent is making a phone call to another country, and then another person comes in to inform to the FBI who's lying about it, and that guy who lied about it has now admitted to the FBI that he told every single lie about Hunter Biden and Burisma, and now, however, a decade later, we still don't have any information about Hunter Biden and Burisma. That's a big issue, I think. I would say that's a big issue.
We have no information. Now we're going into the whole...
That there's anything improper that happened between Hunter and Burisma? Correct.
You think that was all above board?
What are the charges again?
You think it was all above board?
What are the charges again?
You think it was all above board?
What are the charges again?
You think it was all above? Yeah, exactly. You see, this you need to let your person on the other side sitting there actually respond to a question that you're asking. You're asking, what were the charges again? I'm going to ask you this: why would the charges not relate to foreign influence peddling? Why would they not?
Because there was none.
How do you? But I'm saying, how do you know that there was no foreign influence peddling?
Well, okay, technically, I can't say there was none. What I would say is they investigated and they found none. Would be the technical.
So you think what happened with respect to why do you think that a shrewd, corrupt, oligarchical Ukrainian company stupidly just gave millions of dollars to Hunter? Is that what you think? Are we out of time?
We're running out of time. We're out of time.
We're having too much time. Too much fun.
Too much fun.
Too much. Listen. I'd love to have this conversation with you again. Sort of dial down, because I'll tell you this, one thing I think if you think about it, you'll recognize is that if it's your guy who's coming after my guy, it's persecutive. And if it's my guy coming after your guy, it's prosecutive.
What do you think is one unfair standard I've ever held in my life? And then we can either give me one unfair standard. Where you think
right there. You think that Hunter Biden, the easiest one is the one we're just discussing. You think the prosecutions of Trump were completely fair, and the ones that went after Hunter Biden or anything else was completely unfair. Because if it's your guy who they're chasing after, it's persecution. And
wait, don't you think
the guy they're going after, it's prosecution?
Gotcha.
And
the only difference between those two positions is I think they're unfair. And my evidence for that is that, one, Donald Trump was impeached for starting one of those. And two, because there's a 47-minute phone call with Giuliani making a phone call saying, can you guys announce an investigation into my rival's son without any evidence? Okay. That's my evidence. So I'm sorry that the factual reality is
impeachment ultimately is that's a political decision.
True.
Is it not?
It is.
I'm saying you can get if you wanted to, you can get any majority.
Okay,
we gotta get out of here.
We do have to get out of here. But I appreciate the conversation.
I enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for fighting with me. Yeah,
take care.
Or wait, you can shout out your channel where people can find you real quick. Sorry, I'm kicking you out real quick. Sorry, real quick.
I had a great time. Thank you so much. GoodLawgic on goodlogic.locals.com. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Rumble. You can find me pretty much anywhere on X @TheFollowingPro. You're awesome. It was great time talking with you.
Gotcha. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.